Zvezda have rounded out their T-34 releases with the T-34-85. This upgunned version of the T-34 had the same hull, but a new three-man turret armed with the heavier 85mm Zis S-53 gun. This vehicle was the last major production variant of the T-34. On the back of the box is the exploded assembly diagram. Given the limited number of parts in this kit, this will be sufficient to get it built. That's good because the box contains just the single sprue of 12 parts in dark green plastic. There's no instruction sheet, art of tactic card or anything else here. Let's look at the parts. Here's the upper hull. This has good, crisp detail and will look great when it's built. It shows some of the major changes introduced in the model 1943, like the revised driver's hatch and the circular transmission access cover on the rear of the hull between the exhausts. As is pretty standard on Zvezda kits, the tracks are cast as single pieces. Here is the upper and lower turret, which are nicely detailed. The gun and mantlet, fuel tanks, and hull MG. So let's get on with building it. Construction starts with the hull. The upper and lower pieces fit together with pins. There is a very slight sink mark at the centre of the transmission cover. This is caused by the locating pin moulded underneath it. Hopefully it won't be too noticeable, as it would be tricky to fill and sand this given it's surrounded by bolt and hinge detail. An interesting choice here is the squared off fenders. Initially these were rounded like the T-34-76, with the squared off shape being adopted later and most commonly seen on post-war vehicles. This makes this kit suitable for Korea, Vietnam and the Middle East, as well as late World War II. Next we fit the tracks. The track detail is simplified and doesn't capture the characteristic waffle plate patterning. Again, I think this is a trade-off between ease of manufacture and assembly against detail. Given this is a wargaming piece, it's okay, just not as detailed as some other manufacturers' tracks in this scale. Road wheel detail is good, and all the road wheels are the rubber-rimmed type. There is no mixing of steel rims and rubber wheels as there is in the T-34 model 1943 kit. The 85mm Zis S-53 gun is moulded onto the mantlet and has the characteristic armoured collar at the base. This was the main production variant, although some early T-34-85s were fitted with the 85mm D5T cannon as a stopgap until the new Zis S-53 was ready. These guns were identical in performance, but the Zis S-53 was cheaper and simpler to produce. The gun actually looks a bit thin. Care needs to be taken cutting this from the sprue, and it'll be interesting to see what it looks like when it's built. While the hull of this vehicle is virtually identical to the T-34-76 model 1943, the T-34-85 had a completely new turret. This was much larger to accommodate the bigger gun, but it also added a loader, bringing the turret crew to 3. In previous two-man T-34 turrets, the commander was required to assist the gunner by loading the gun, in addition to commanding the tank. The addition of a loader frees the commander to concentrate on his main job. As far as I can tell from my Stevens Aloga reference source, the T-34 in action, this is the 1945 flattened turret, and it has a bulge in the armour on the front left for the turret traverse motor. The turret roof has 2 domed mushroom ventilators at the rear, the later repositioned commander's coupler with the one-piece hatch, and the flat Mk4 periscopes that became standard on the T-34-85. The turret has the prominent collar between the top of the hull and the turret. Like the T-34 model 1943 kit, the hull machine gun and armoured cover are a single piece that fits into a recess on the hull to make a tight fit. This kit includes 3 external fuel tanks. These were standard equipment on T-34s by this stage of the war, and were usually mounted 2 on the right and 1 on the left. These drums have long pins that fit into holes on the hull to mount them. This was a very simple build, and the end result looks very much like a T-34-85. The gun is maybe a little thin, but the hull detail is nice. The turret is good, with details like the flattened sides and bulge for the traverse mechanism, as well as the later coupler and ventilators. Again, the overall shape of the kit is just a little bit better and more accurate than the Plastic Soldier Company's T-34. So that's the Zvezda plastic 1/100th scale T-34-85, a great little kit. Zvezda are really raising the bar with each new release. They have a T-34 model 1940 with the L11 gun, the T-34-76 model 1943, and the T-34-85. They really need a T-34 model 1942 to give them a solid range of T-34s. Here are the Flames of War stats for the vehicle. If you look at the notes, there are less special rules for this version of the T-34 than for the model 1943. The coupler on this variant removes the limited visibility rule, meaning this T-34 has no penalty when attacking a target outside its front arc. It also loses fast tank and wide tracks. I'm guessing this represents the impact on manoeuvrability from the increased weight of this tank over previous versions. The main change for this vehicle is the AT increased to 12 for the 85mm main gun. This is not as good as the German 7.5cm or 8.8cm guns, but gives the T-34 at least a fighting chance against the front armour 9 and 10 of the Tiger I and Panther. As Stephen Zaloga notes, the T-34 is not actually the direct equivalent of the Panther and Tiger, both of which the Russians would classify as heavy tanks. The T-34's weight class equivalent is the Panzer IV, for which it is definitely a match. The Russians have the KV and IS series designed to handle the heavies. So the increased weight of the T-34-85 loses some special rules from earlier variants, but trades these off for an increase in armour, visibility and firepower. The T-34-85 is the workhorse of Soviet tank formations in the later part of the war, and went on to serve for decades more in some theatres. Here we put the Plastic Soldier Company T-34-85 next to the Zvezda version. The PSC kit on the right is a bit smaller and the hull is much narrower. The gun on the PSC kit is like a tree trunk compared to the Zvezda gun. I suspect the truth is somewhere in between. So that's the Zvezda T-34-85, another great T-34 kit. Have you built one? Let me know what you thought in the comments.